the Midlife Empowerment Coach, and today I am thrilled to introduce Tamara Ortegel. When two of her boys were diagnosed with Crohn's disease in 2010, Tamara sought ways to support their body holistically. In 2014, she graduated from the Institute for Integrative Nutrition and started sharing her knowledge with others. She helps clients understand their symptoms and identify simple steps to improve their health. Tamara has a master's degree in organizational behavior and a 200-hour yoga teacher certification, which she draws upon to work with her clients on a deeper level. She's passionate about food, family, and natural healing. She loves to read, travel, and spend time outdoors. So Tamara, welcome, welcome. I can't wait to hear about your topic, which is how we can follow the clues when it comes to our immune system. So I am going to turn it over to you.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Tamara Ortegel, and I'm super thrilled to be here. So thank you so much for having me and letting me share my story and the work that I do. So to begin, I do want to share a few slides that I think are a little bit helpful. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now. Okay. All right. And can everybody see that? Okay, good. So I always like to say that worried moms do the best research, better than the FBI. And if you have ever had a sick kid, you probably have gotten on Google and read books and articles and whatnot to try to better understand what's going on. And the same thing happened to me. In 2010, life threw us a curveball, and 2 of my 3 seemingly healthy kids were diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And you know, to me, it seemed like it came out of nowhere. But of course, as I reflect back on things, I know there were cues and clues that I just didn't see before. So it became really important to me to sort of understand that. And I love to help other people look for things in their life that may be clues, and maybe ultimately I'll be able to prevent other people from having a diagnosis like Crohn's disease. So I love all kinds of medicine. You know, if I break my arm, I'm going to be really grateful to go to the hospital and have a surgeon repair that. If I'm looking for, you know, an essential oil, I love someone who's holistic. But the kind of medicine I really, really love is functional medicine, because it really looks at the body and the functionality, and it ties things together really nicely in my mind. And so this slide is so perfect because it shows you different things that can be diagnosis, like ADHD, diabetes, autism, Crohn's, all these different things that we understand, you know, as a diagnosis. But there's things that are going on underneath the surface, like with this iceberg principle, where there may be nutrient malabsorption or inflammation or hormone imbalance or even structural imbalances. Maybe, you know, someone's spine is, you know, out of alignment. Or there can even be traumatic experiences. And so many of us do harbor traumatic experiences in our life. And it can range from so many different things. I had a Dorothy Hamill haircut when I was little, and my mom was a hairstylist, so I always had funky hair. And, you know, I'm not traumatized by that, but, you know, if someone had made fun of me for my Coke bottle glasses and my Dorothy Hamill haircut, maybe that's something that I take with me into my life. And every time I go to the hairdresser, then I'm freaking out that she might give me or he might give me a haircut that looks bad on me. Who knows? People, you know, we all have sensitivities, and it can be something like that. Or maybe you got bit by a dog when you were young, or maybe you were raised in a household where there was a lot of yelling, or maybe something, you know, a really horrible situation happened to you that you can't forget. So we store all these things inside of our body, and they come out later in life. And so they come out like PTSD, they come out like anxiety, depression, and ultimately fibromyalgia. Some physical things could be anything stress related can be triggered. So I always like to look at what are all the little things that are going on, and how do they someday become a really big thing. And if we could nip them in the bud when they're small things, that would just be really wonderful. And if I could help anyone do that, I would be really honored. So it's why I really love looking at things from this perspective and helping other people see. In my case, my youngest son, who's now 19, started out with just chronic ear infections. actually, I'm going to come back to that for a second. He had chronic ear infections as a little guy. So at ages 2 and 3, he had 2 sets of tubes in his ears, and then he had his adenoids taken out. And back then, you know, doctors looked at things only from a structural standpoint. So it was, oh, maybe his eustachian tubes aren't growing as fast as the rest of his body, or maybe they're tipped the wrong direction, and so fluids aren't draining properly and they're just backing up in his ears. No one ever looked at what is he eating and how might that be causing more you know, inflammation in his body, or causing him to back up some of the fluids. And then also, you know, what else could be going on, you know, for him, you know, in his microbiome. Now I'm so grateful that the microbiome has become this huge area of study. Maybe there's an imbalance going on in his body and it's causing this. And so a lot of people now will say, if you have sinusy problems and crud like that, probably dairy could be a culprit. And it's a good place to start and to think about. And I know a lot of people who then will take dairy out of their diet, and they'll notice that they have less inflammation, you know, in their nose and their ears and just the cruddy feeling in that area of their body. So, you know, I know that if I had learned more when my son was 2 and 3, facing just simple ear infections, maybe we would have gotten that under control. And then years later, when he was 8, maybe he wouldn't have Crohn's disease. Who knows? I think these are all signs that we, you know, can point to and say something was breaking down and we missed the opportunity to resolve them properly back then. Even though I'm not saying that out of guilt, although I do feel a little guilty, we did the best we could at the time. And I want everyone to know that every day we do the best that we can with the information that we have available to us. And it's not to point a finger, it's really just to say, let's keep looking, let's keep digging, let's look for clues. So I want everyone to know, in case you don't know, that your immune system is mainly in your gut, 70% of your immune system, that is, and that there's a huge connection between your brain and your gut, and it's via the vagus nerve that goes from your brain stem down into the organs that are in your gut. And that actually we are only 10% human cells. We are 90% the microbes that make up our gut. And those are bacteria, fungi, parasites, viruses. And we always used to think that viruses and bacteria in particular were bad, but the reality is that they're good and we need to live in harmony with them. It's only when they take over and there's more bad than there is good that things break down. And so, you know, we need to look for balance in our life. And those different kinds of microbes live in our bladder, in our intestines, in our nose, our mouth, our skin, and even in our vagina. So again, you know, we can think about different infections that we may have had in the past and know that it's just a matter of an imbalance happened, not that all of a sudden we were exposed to a bacteria. We already had that bacteria in us and around us and on us. It's just that it got out of control. And so we always want to try to have balance in our life. And there, you know, the whole idea of probiotics and psychobiotics and these kinds of things are huge research right now. And that's really great, but I prefer to focus on food, because the food that we eat every meal, every day, is what feeds the microbes inside our body. And if we choose the right foods, we will feed the good bacteria. And if we choose the wrong foods, we will be feeding the bad bacteria. And so to the extent possible, again, we're going to have some junky food as a treat, but the whole of our diet should be really whole plant foods first, and then some other things. So I really like to teach that food is medicine, and to the extent possible that we can have access to really great food, it can be really healing. And one more thing about, you know, the imbalance in our gut, the things that cause a lot of balance are too many antibiotics. And again, my son with ear infections had lots of antibiotics and it threw off his balance in his microbiome, and over-the-counter drugs too. You know, for that occasional situation, it's fine to take a Tylenol or an ibuprofen or an antacid, but they're not meant for long-term. So if you find yourself in a situation where you have a chronic situation and you are always going to that ibuprofen, it may solve the thing you're trying to solve and then create a different problem. For example, it can cause ulcers in your stomach lining, and nobody wants that. So we just need to be mindful that for those occasional situations that you may have, it's fine to go to those things, but for longer term issues, that's not the intent, and we need to be careful not to just fall into that trap where we keep going back. Processed foods are also really hard on our body. We are not meant to have genetically modified foods. Our body doesn't know what to do with that. And so we need to be really careful. And for little kids, you know, cereal is the most heavily processed food on the planet. And so I really hope that, you know, as people learn more about food, that they will have cereal either as a treat or just take it out of the pantry and don't offer it to kids anymore, because there really are not a lot of nutrients that are in cereal. They're all fortified and brought back in. And I really prefer a whole food diet in the form that it was grown. And lastly, animal products. I'm not against people eating animal products, but animal products are raised oftentimes in ways where they get a lot of antibiotics, for one thing, and then also they're fed a lot of grains. So always keep in mind that whatever you're eating, you are ingesting whatever they ate or whatever medicines they were given to stay healthy. So it's really important to try to buy organic meat and dairy, or grass-fed or pasture-raised to the extent possible, just to keep your body healthy. So again, to feed the good bacteria, it's really great to have lots of plants, seeds and nuts and legumes. And you know, for people that are looking for a supplement, my family has been taking Juice Plus for 10 years. It was the first thing that we were introduced to when the doctor said the boys needed to eat a bland, low fiber diet. I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to keep these little kids healthy? They were only 8 and 13 at the time. If I'm taking all these, you know, good fibrous things off their plate. So Juice Plus is a whole food supplement. And if you would like to learn more about that, I would be happy to share it at a further date, but just know that it carries a food label and it's 30 fruits and vegetables. And I really stand behind it. And I love that it's available to people. The second thing is, a lot of people will stay away from legumes and other fibrous foods because they may give them gas or make them feel bloated, different things like that. And you need to add these things into your diet slowly and approach it kind of like bodybuilding. Build a tolerance over time. Don't just go in whole hog, you know, add a spoonful of this or that over time. Your body will adapt. And then you'll build up a tolerance and you'll be able to eat beans and legumes and seeds and lots of fruits and vegetables without those feelings of discomfort. And then finally, you know, a restricted diet, you know, and a fad diet doesn't really work in the long term. A lot of people will give up on those diets, but also whenever you take something out of your diet for a long time, then you're missing nutrients. And so my family does eat gluten-free because we found the gluten was very inflammatory to the kids and as a precaution, but we're really mindful about making sure that we're adding in all the healthy grains and not just eating no grains. And so if you feel that there are certain foods that are really giving you a hard time, you may want to take them out of your diet for a short period of time to give your gut a rest. And then find ways to either add those things back in or something that has a similar composition so that you're not missing nutrients. Again, solving one problem and creating a second problem. And I can help you with that. I want to tell you my favorite stories of finding the clues. You know, again, okay, so my son had the ear infections. Those were clues that there was an imbalance. I'll skip the second one for a minute, but I have a friend who had a severe back injury. She fell and she hurt her back. And through that healing process, she had a breakdown in her thyroid and ended up with some thyroid dysfunction that she's working on now. Her back is healed, but now she has this immune dysfunction. People who have pale skin or stunted growth are really not absorbing all their nutrients. And so it's a clue. If you know anyone, that was a situation with my second son is he was playing sports, but we noticed that he was really pale. He seemed really worn out by playing sports all of a sudden. And then he wasn't growing at the same pace he had grown before, and his friends were getting a lot taller than him. And it was a clue that, wow, something's going on here. So it's a blessing that our first son was diagnosed and that we learned so much about the Crohn's disease that we were able to look at our second son and say, wow, you know what, you have some of these symptoms, let's check it out. And, you know, within a couple of weeks, he too was diagnosed. Had the first son not had more of the bathroom situation with the Crohn's disease, we might have missed it. And our second son might have missed the opportunity to grow in the time frame, because he was already 13, and usually boys, you know, slow down their growth starting at 14, and then, you know, they do continue to grow into college, but it's not at the same rate that they do during those puberty years. So, and then I have another client who, you know, is from another country. And when she came over here, she adopted the standard American diet, who a lot of people call the SAD diet, because she wanted to fit in and she wanted to embrace her new community. But the reality is that those foods weren't really nurturing her, and she felt run down. She started to gain some weight, and ultimately she felt a disconnection between her family heritage and her new life in America. So I love to teach people to say, hey, let's, you know, honor the heritage that you have. Let's tweak recipes that you grew up on, and make sure we're adding in the healthiest ingredients, the oils and the sugars and whatever you need for that recipe to make it feel like home, but a healthier version possibly. And then back to that second one, my favorite story of all time is my youngest son had gotten braces his sophomore year, right before school started, and he had the absolute worst Crohn's flare-up ever. And so we took him to Mayo Clinic and we had him evaluated, because we said, wow, you know, is the medicine not working anymore, or what's going on? Because we haven't really changed anything. And he went through a series of tests, and it came back that no, he wasn't really having a Crohn's flare-up. Everything was stable from a Crohn's perspective. And yet he was, you know, really worn out. He was having a lot of bathroom problems, and he just did not feel like himself. So when we got home from that trip to Mayo, we really thought hard, what have we changed, you know? And the only thing we really had changed were the braces. And so I went to the orthodontist and I said, I know this sounds crazy, but, you know, what do you think about taking the braces off? It's really the only thing that's new. And they said they did have one other time when somebody was responding in a negative way to braces. So we took the metal braces off my son, and within a couple of months, everything stabilized. He was able to get a knockoff version of Invisalign to finish his treatment, and he has beautiful teeth now. But he just could not handle having those heavy metals and soft metals in his body 24/7. So, you know, we are all so unique in what we can tolerate. So, and now I know too that, you know, with braces and things like that, if you know that you have more of a sensitive system, it's great to get tested. A dentist can test you for different ingredients they might be using for a filling or for braces or whatnot. So you can go in with more information if you think that this could happen to you. So again, just following those clues can be really, really helpful. I'm so blessed that we did that, because we were out of ideas, and that was really the last idea we had, and it turned out to be the right one. When I graduated from my health coaching program, the first thing I did is I created this journal. And, you know, health is so many things. It's the foods that we eat. It's the thoughts that we think. It's our job. It's our relationships. It's our hobbies. It's our sense of spirituality. And all these things, again, bring us into balance. And, you know, we can have an impeccable diet, but if we're really struggling with work and we don't like our job, or we can't keep up, we can be, you know, really unhealthy, and it can trigger disease in us. So with this journal, each page has an opportunity for you to journal. There's a thought that I ask you to think about. So on this page, it says, 1/2 of knowing what you want is knowing what you must give up before you get it. So I ask you just to think about that and, you know, write a few sentences. And then the other part of it is to document what you're eating. Again, I think food is so important. And so the journal asks you to document what you're eating and how it makes you feel. Does it bring you joy? Does it make you feel bloated? Does it make you feel tired, or does it make you feel energized? All these different things. And if you do a food log like this for a whole week, at the end of the week, you can summarize kind of the findings. And then you do it for a whole month, and each week you do it, you summarize that week, and then at the end you summarize all 4 weeks. And again, these are clues that can help you determine if the food that you're eating is the best choice for you, or if maybe it's not the best choice for you, and how you can tweak your diet to be more in tune with what your body needs. So this journal is available on Amazon, and it's not very expensive. So I urge you, to get yourself a journal if you're looking for more information on how food and even, other aspects of your life, because your mindset's so important, and your thoughts can give you clues also about what's really going on. And then, I want to just say, there's 5 things that I think can guide you. Mindset is everything. So I want you to believe that you deserve to be healthy. If you are someone who really doesn't feel good, you need to know that you deserve to feel good and to prepare to feel good. Sometimes we get used to being limited, and we need to let go of that so that we can embrace what is meant for us. I want you to follow your intuition. Your heart knows things that your mind cannot explain. So if you have something going on with you and you, in your sleep, you're dreaming about it, or you're waking up thinking about it, it's your heart talking to you. So pay attention to that. I want you to be willing to try new things that you never imagined. You have to be courageous. If you don't feel good and you want to feel good, you have to be willing. And it takes a lot of courage and guts to do that. I do not want you to use your illness as an excuse. My middle son got to go to Italy and all over Europe for a whole semester during college, eating gluten-free and with Crohn's disease. And I can coach you on how to make that happen for your son or daughter or niece and nephew. It wasn't easy to get the insurance company to give us the medication that we needed in order for him to go on that trip, but we fought tooth and nail and we won. And I want you to have that attitude that you are not going to let this stop you, because you deserve health and you deserve every opportunity that is there for you. And finally, a complementary approach is just so beautiful. Spend the time and money and invest in your health. It's all you have at the end of the day. And really good health is going to last you and allow you to do all the things that you really want to do in your life. So that's all I have for us today.
Great. Thank you so much. I just love to hear all about your journey, and I really appreciate you being so vulnerable and sharing your family's experience. It's so important for us to see and to hear what you've been through, and sort of be a role model for others who may be having some suspicions, their intuition, something's not sitting right, something's not feeling right, and yet are just trusting that the doctors know best. And everybody's an individual, right? Everybody's situation may present a little differently. And so kind of fighting for what you deserve, and that, the health you deserve and the feeling good that you deserve, is such a powerful message.
Yeah. And, I feel like doctors don't know a lot about nutrition. They are not given nutrition class in med school. And, they really only have, 5 or 10 minutes with each patient. So, they just don't have time to sort it out with you. And so you have to be, go in there with maybe some information to bounce off of them, or approach, a more functional medicine doctor who has the time. And, it is expensive to see those people, because oftentimes they don't take insurance, but even for a consultation, it can be very helpful.
So when you say a functional doctor, and you mentioned functional medicine, what exactly is that? Is that somebody who has a medical degree, but with some additional training, or is it something totally separate?
Yeah, what's really cool is, chiropractors and naturopathic doctors tend to look at the body and the structure and the function of the body. But now there are so many traditional MDs who are wanting to look at things from another angle. And so they're going on and they're getting this extra training in functional or integrative medicine, they sometimes call it too.
Okay.
And they're, then bringing this together, looking at medicine from another lens. And there are a lot of MDs who are starting to, go after that extra information, and it's really great. And those are the ones oftentimes who do take insurance. Or you can, try to see a chiropractor. Oftentimes you can have the chiropractic visit, and then also some of them tend to focus on additional items as well.
Very cool. Yeah, I didn't know that. I've heard of integrative medicine, so I didn't know that functional and integrative are kind of the same.
Yeah, they tend to be, kind of along the same lines.
Yeah. And then I definitely am familiar with the vagus nerve, and I am a big believer in the whole, gut brain connection. And I think they call the gut your second brain now, right? It's, there's there's a lot to process that's going on in our gut, and that can inform us and inform our well-being. So I love that you brought that up.
Well, yeah, and I think, we have to remember that we are a product of the foods that we eat. And so, for any of us that might be suffering from anxiety or depression or headaches or anything like that, these are not brain dysfunctions alone. The food that we eat gets broken down and it gets, made into cells. And, what do I want to say? We just really need to understand that these are all connected. And so if we eat a junky diet, eventually, usually, when you're young, you can get away with that for a while. But eventually it catches up to us and then it no longer works.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about what you do with your clients.
Yeah. So what I like to do with my clients is at a minimum, I really like to work with people for 4 weeks up to 6 months. Because I really want to understand what are their habits, what are their complaints, what are their goals. One of the things I really love to do with people once I get to know them a little bit is take them grocery shopping. It can be very empowering. And if somebody lives far away, I can even, do FaceTime grocery shopping with them. I think it's really empowering to be at the store when you're faced with a choice and say, I'd buy this. And me to say, I'd buy this, and let's talk about why.
Right.
Yeah. But a lot of coaching, people don't have a friend or family member who really wants to hear their story anymore, and so as a coach, I can help them set goals, and then I can be their accountability partner. And that person who's listening, but not just listening to them vent, listening with an ear to say, okay, what are we going to work on next? And how are we going to work on that? And then we're going to get together again and we're going to talk about what did you do and how is it working? So we can keep through trial and error, getting to the point where, they are feeling much better. Because I think the body's made to heal. And, yes, my kids have Crohn's disease. Yes, they still take medication, but I will tell you, they have had an amazing life. We have traveled all over the world. They've played competitive sports. Right now my youngest son is away at college. A lot of kids don't want to be away because they're feeling isolated or they're afraid to get sick. He's not afraid because he does so many things to support his well-being that he's there and he feels really confident. And, his roommate did get COVID and he didn't, and he's living, in that same small space with somebody. I feel very blessed, and but I also feel like his mindset is such that he is, doing really well at taking care of himself, even in a campus environment where, it's new.
That's actually pretty amazing, because a lot of young people, I think, and I know this just from some friends of mine whose kids have a chronic issue, it's hard sometimes to convince them that they need to change their habits. But I guess if there's a consequence to not changing your habit, that's the best teacher.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of us have little kids who are picky eaters. And you either take the approach, well, you're going to sit at the table until your last pea is gone, or you let them off the hook and think this is a phase they're going through. And, there's no right or wrong answer. But it's one of the things that I love about Juice Plus is that the more you take the supplement and the more that you eat a food maybe that you don't like, even if you're looking at it from just the real food perspective, if you force yourself to eat it over time, your palate becomes used to it.
Right.
And you may even crave it. And so it's sort of this metabolic processing that your body goes through. So, I always think it's so interesting, but, a lot of kids do, they are picky eaters. And, I just think food is so amazing. And to the extent that we can be more adventurous with food, we can be healthier.
Yeah, no, such a powerful message. And I really appreciate you coming on today and talking about, especially the sort of listening to your gut and taking care of your gut in order to really feed your whole being. And I think that's a great aspiration, and it sounds like it doesn't have to be torture, and it can be done, and you can enjoy food. It's not a deprivation issue. There's really a way to eat healthy and delicious foods and feel good. So I think that's so important. Thank you so much. And I want to let everybody know that we're going to put Tamara's website and her podcast. She has a podcast too, in the links. And I think Tamara's going to have an offer for us that she will add as well. So really great offers. Really appreciate your time and your generosity, Tamara. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity.